Good morning to all of you. So let us start the class. Today I will be talking about the data frames, right? And for explaining the data frames, I will actually use this data set, which is demographic data.csv file. It's a comma separated values file, just like Excel file. Normally the data sets come in CSV format also, right? Now, there are two ways to actually import. We have to first of all import this data set. Since I have kept this file in my working directory, so I can straightway import, and the package used to deal with the data sets is pandas. So we have to import pandas. The command we already know, import pandas as PD. So PD is the abbreviation used for pandas, so that we can use PD instead of pandas for rest of the code. And stats is the name of the data set. You can put any name, no problem. So the command to import the data set, once this file is in your working directory, so you can directly say pd.read_csv demographic data.csv file. Otherwise, if this file is not in your working directory, current working directory, so you need to give the complete path. So you can try at your homes, no problem with that. So since this demographic data.csv file is there in my working directory, which I have made on desktop, right? So I'm directly specifying here the name of the file and it will be opening. So the data set is basically consisting of 195 rows. So these are 194 because it starts from 0. So 195 rows are there. And in this data set, country name, country code, birth rate, internet users, and income group. So this kind of data is there. So we can display this data by saying stats, which is the name of the data set. Once I say stats, the whole data set will be displayed, right? So we will go further. How to, if you want to know what is the current working directory, you need to import OS. So print os.get cwd, which is current working directory. This is the function available, so you can know the current working directory in which I'm working, right? If I want to know the length of this data set, some functions are very handy actually while dealing with data frames or tables, right? Where you want to know immediately, if you want to know how many columns are there, how many rows are there, if you want to slice the rows, you can do that. We will do that. I started last time, but we'll continue with this once again, and then I will go forward. If you want to know how many columns are there, so len is the function, stats.columns will give you 5 functions, 5 columns are there. If you want to know the length of the, how many rows are there, so you need to say len stats, which is the data set. So it will give you 195 rows. All right. If you want to know the information about the, I will share this Python script file with you. So you need not to worry about that. But the important thing is that you must know that these functions we can operate on data frames. You can know the information of the what all is there in the columns. So you need to only say stats.columns will give you country name, country code. These are the columns actually: country name, country code, birth rate, internet users, and income group. So these are basically the data type is the object kind of data type. Right. Now this function is very handy actually. I need to actually keep running this. This function is very handy. Stats.head. So if you do not supply any argument here, what it will do basically is, if you run this function, it will give you 5. Sorry. Stats.head. If you do not give any argument, it will give you 5 rows, starting rows. So to know, what are different columns, what kind of data set is this? Just to quickly know what kind of data set is this. So you can use the head function, or if you supply here an argument, let's say 10, it will give you first 10 rows, right? Then here it is head 6, you can know how many, and there is another function tail. If you want to see your data set from the bottom, so it will give you 185 to 194, it will give. So 10 rows it will show you from the bottom, right? Then another function can be, if you want to get the information about the data set, right, stats.info, it will give you the data columns, right? Total, how many columns are there? 5 columns are there, range in 195 entries are there, right? So object, what is the type of the data type? Country name is an object, country code is an object, birth rate is a float kind of variable or column, right? So it will give you information about the data set. Then another function is stats.describe, which will actually give you information about where the columns which are actually numeric columns will, it will mainly deal with that. This function will mainly deal with those columns, will give you how the count of the entries, mean, standard deviation, minimum value, first quartile, second quartile, third quartile, and maximum values. Like this, it will give you the information about the data set for the columns which are basically numeric columns. Then if you want to display this information row wise, we can say stats.describe function.transpose. So once we run that, it will, this whole information will be displayed row wise, right? So let's run stats.head once again. We'll give you 5 columns, right? 5 rows, stats.columns. Okay. Now, important thing here you see you have stats.columns. The columns are country name, country code, and internet users, and so on. Let's say if I want to change the if I want to change the name of the columns, so how to do that? If I say stats.columns, within these square brackets, you have to put A, B, C, D, E for 5 columns. Since 5 columns are there, so we will do that. Once we run that, you can see here that the name of the columns are changed. Now, if you run stats.head, you will see, or we can try, let's say stats.tail. So you see here that the names of the columns are changed. This is how you can change the name of the column. This is important because if you see previously the data set, there is a gap, there is a space between country and name, country and code. It is a common practice to do not give a space between different words, right? So we can, if you want to change that thing, we can use the stats.columns, like stats.columns, to change the name of the column, country name, country code, birth rate, internet users, internet group. So if you run this, you will see that now there will not be any gap. This is very handy. We'll come to know about this once we go ahead with the programming. You will see that. And if you see, so the names of the columns are changed. Whenever a data set is given to you, some kind of cleaning is required before handling the data set. You will see that once we will start the machine learning algorithms, you will see that a data set, whenever a data set is available, is made available to you, there are many, you have to pre-process the data basically. Pre-process the data means you have to clean the data so that you can run it, and you can use various Python libraries, Python packages to to fully make use of the language, right? So you need to clean the data to get the proper information, to get the proper analysis of the data set. Then next thing we will do is that how to subset. Subset means how to extract subsets out of the data set, right? Subsetting data frames in pandas. Stats.head is a subset, will give you 5 rows only. This is one subset, right? So we can do the subsetting by rows also, by columns also, and we can combine the two also. That if you want to see some of the rows out of the data set, or if you want to see only few columns, or if you want to see some rows and few columns. So that's the meaning of 3 ways by which we can do the subsetting. For example, stats is the name of the data set. If I want to say the 21st row and 26th will not be included. So if I run this, it is 0. Okay, my cursor was actually somewhere else. If I run this, it will give me 21 to 25. So let's say if I want to say 20 to 26, so you will see that it is giving me 20 to 25. And 0 to 26 means it will give you first 25 rows. That's how you can do the subsetting. After that, if you want to see 2 colon 4, so that means 2 to 3. Actually showing it's going one step, one command for anyway. 2 colon 4, it will show you 2 and 3. If you put only a column, so that means the complete data set, right? We already know this when we dealt with arrays and lists. Then 185 column, so it will give me one starting from 185 to all the rest of the rows. So up to 194. If I say stats, nothing on the left side, column 10, it will go up to 9, and all the rest of the rows it will show. Correct? If yeah, this is an important exercise which you can actually do. This is that how to reverse the data frame. So you say complete data frame. So colon, and we need to give a step size of 1 minus 1. So once I give a step size of -1, all the complete data set entries will be displayed in the reverse order. Correct? Then all right, this is the same thing. If we want to display the data set with a step size of 20, that means first the row number 0 should be displayed, then 20, 40, and so on. So how can we do it? Colon, and with a step size of 20. So once you run that, it will give you gap of 20. So let's run it with gap of 30. So it will give you these rows. Correct? So again, we can have the column information, right? And stats.head information. Okay, let me show you. If I want to know information about one column only, so how can I get stats? Within the bracket, I need to say country name if I want to display. So it will give you information about all the rows for country name, right? All right, up to 194. If you want to know about country name, but only few entries, and you can use, and then you can combine the head function. So stats country name dot head. So if you see that, this will show you only 5 entries for this column country name. So let's say if I want to, if I put 10 here, so it will show you 10 entries of the country name column. If you want to extract two columns, you can use country name and birth rate. It will give you country name and birth rate. So basically, how to extract the two columns? You have to actually, this is a list created, right? So you create a list of two columns, of the columns which you want to particularly see, right? So once you run this list, country name and birth rate, it will give you output of country name. Now you say as you said, stats country name, right? It displayed the complete information about the country name column. Now you want to see two columns, so you need to say stats, bracket starts here, and you need to supply a list as an argument here, right, which you created for country name and birth rate. So if you run this, it will show you two columns, and if you remove the side function, it will give you the complete information about all the columns. But if you want to see only 5 entries, then you can see like this. Correct. Then the order, you can also change the order. If you want to put birth rate first and country name afterwards, then you can say stats, birth rate, country name. So it will be displayed like this only. Right. So this is the information how you can get about the birth rate. All right. Stats, you can also say stats dot birth rate. We will also give that. You can, I mean, you can try various options while you start learning about the data frames. Then this is stats dot birth rate dot head. Okay. So this is how you can. So what we have done till now is that how to slice the rows, how to subset the rows. For example, we did it like here, colon 30. Then we also did some more subsetting, right? For example, colon 10. So this is subsetting of the rows. Then we did the subsetting of columns also, that we want to see one column or two columns. So we can also do the subsetting like this. Now we want to do the combined subsetting. Let's see how can we see the combined one. Okay, let me just come to. Okay, combined. I have put some comments also so that you can understand it. Combined columns and rows. So this is how we can do it. Stats 4 colon 8. That means it will show entries from row number 4 to row number 7. 8 is not inclusive. And of course, these entries. If you see here, you will see that double bracket is there because we are supplying in this bracket an argument of a list, right? Because we want to display two columns. So if you run this, it will give you row number 4 to row number 7 and these two columns. This is how we can do the subsetting of the combined row and column. Then the order actually does not matter here. If you put the column information before and the row information afterwards, so it won't change the output. Let's say you create another data frame. Okay, this is not that important, it's the same thing. If you want to, let's say, basic operations with data frame, subsetting is already done. So we have done the subsetting of the rows, the columns, and the combined subsetting also. We can do also some mathematical operations, which may involve, let's say, if you want to multiply one column with the other column, though if you see the multiplication here, that I have performed the multiplication of birth rate and the internet users. All right, this this does not have any meaning, multiplying birth rate with internet user. Just as an example, I'm showing it here that if you want to multiply the two columns, you can perform the mathematical operation also. So I'm putting the multiplication in another variable, which is result. How it is to be done? Stats dot birth rate multiplied with stats dot internet users. So two columns are taken. So entry by entry, they will be multiplied. Right. And if I want, so another variable is created. So if you want to see this, it is result dot head will actually give you. Sorry, I have not run this line. So this will give me the output. Now, let's say I want to, because if you see the data set, if you remember the data set contained 5 columns. If when I multiply birth rate with internet user, let's say I want to create another column. How to create another column? Only you need to say stats, and this is the name of the new column, my calculation, we can say my calci, and you put it equal to stats dot birth rate multiplied by stats dot internet user. So another column will be created in the data frame, which is actually the multiplication of the birth rate and the internet users column. Now, if you run this, and if you run this also, you will see that my calci is another column created, which is actually the multiplication of the birth rate and the internet users. Yeah, right. So now we have to actually filter, how to filter out the data frames. Right, filtering is about rows. Don't filter by columns. So whenever we talk about filtering, it's mainly for the rows. So let's say stats.head. Let's see what are the what is the data set information, seeing the 5 rows. Then let us say I want to find out internet user in the data set. I want to find out the rows for which the internet users are less than 2. Right, stats dot internet user. That means this is a kind of filtering operation being done. Stats dot internet users less than 2. So if you will see that for all the rows where this statement is not true, it will put false, and wherever it will be, for example, the 11th entry is true, that means the information in the 11th entry will be less than 2 for internet users. Right, then we can let's see how more filters can be applied. So we can put this output of true and false in a variable, which is, let's say, filter equal to stats dot internet users less than 2. Right, so if we run this, so this is the filter output. Then we can we know that the filter object has been created. Now, if you want to particularly know what are the row entries where the internet users was less than 2, so we can do stats and square brackets. Within the square brackets, we can put the name of the filter. We have set the name. So it is giving me entries where the internet users are less than 2. Another filter I'm creating here is filter 2 stats dot birth rate, let's say greater than 40. So if I run this, it will give me filter 2 as the filter, and it will give me false wherever the statement is not true. That means the birth rate is less than 40, and wherever the birth rate is greater than 40, it will give me true. So if I want to see the particular rows, I can say stats filter 2. So you will see that these are the entries, these are the data points. Every row of a data set, we call it as a data point also. So the data points, you see the data points that these are the entries for which the birth rate is greater than 40. Right. Then we can combine the, so this is the entry. This is how we can use the same information, right? We can obtain the same information. All right. Now, this is an important point here. Let's talk about this. If you want to, let's say, combine the two filtering operations, the first filtering operation was stats.birth rate greater than 40, and the other is stats.internet users less than 2. So let's say we want to do the AND operation. We want to show the columns where the two statements are true. We want to show the data points or rows where the two statements are true. If I run this, you will see that it's showing an error. Okay. So when I'm running this statement, it is showing an error. Why do we have this error? Because this is a this is a kind of series where the entries will be, it's not one entry. Stats.birth rate greater than 40 is a series. In the same way, stats.internet users will also be a series. It will not be one entry. This AND operation is actually doing the ending of one-to-one entry, right? Single values. Python is not, since Python is not a vectorized language, it's an object-oriented language. So to the left of and to the right of to its right, it expects single values. It's not expecting a vector. Maybe some other languages like R, you can do this kind of operation because R is a vectorized language, but Python is not a vectorized language. In that case, what you need to do is that, okay, let's see how can we get the output. And even if you do filter, which was the name of the first filter, and filter 2, again the same kind of error will come. The thing is that filter was the name of the filter for internet users less than 2, and filter 2 is the filter for which the birth rate was greater than 40. So two filters. Now we need to use not this AND operation here, but we need to use the ampersand. This is the bitwise ending it will do. And then the entries, then the two entries will be compared for whenever the two entries are true, then only you will get a true value here. So you see, you get true when internet users are less than 2 and birth rate is greater than 40. This is how you can create the filtering operations in the data frame also. So you can check this with stats filter ampersand filter 2, right? So it will give you those columns for which this is true. If you can see that the internet users are less than 2 and the birth rate is greater than 40. So 3 columns are there for 3 categories. All right. Okay. Then what other operations we can do? We need to put an ampersand here. You can try this. Okay, if you want to see the if you want to see, for example, income within the income group, you have high income, low income. If you put the stats head, you will see that what are the income group, high income group, low income group, upper middle income group, upper middle high. These kind of entries are there. But if you want to see, let's say for the rows only for those where high income is there within the income group column, how you can see that stats dot income group, right? This is double equal sign, and you put this assignment, you put as high income. So if you run this, it will give you all those data points for which the within this column the high income is coming, right? Okay, so let's look at more how to get the unique categories. What are the categories in the income group column? All right, so you can use the unique function for which the, I mean, what are the what kind of entries are there in the income group? So you can say stats.income group dot unique function. So it will give you all the type of entries, unique entries in this column. Correct. If you want to find out the for a particular country, what is the data, you can also do that stats dot country name, compare it with United States, so you will get the country by USA. So this is the discussion regarding the data frames, right? You need to import the data set or data frame into Python, and then you can perform various operations on the data frame, right, to work on these tables. I will share this file and you can do more at your end, maybe in labs or so on. All right. Now, what I want to do now is what I will do is that I will change the Python file here, and I want to introduce and start with how to create a class in Python. All right. How to create a class in Python, and what are functions, what are objects, instances, instance variables, class variables, and so on. So let us now look at this Python file, which is basically to tell you how to create a class, what are the advantages of class, and how you can instantiate the class, and so on. This problem I have taken from one of the videos on YouTube, so I found it quite interesting to explain the creation of the class, right? In your Python libraries, if you want to see, you will see that the class is created. Then you make use of those classes to perform your functionality. But to start with, you must understand how to create a class and how to modify it and how to further build up or use the class in your programming. Okay, so this is basically the class that I'm discussing is for a company or for any organization where the employees are working, right? So many employees are working, and we want to create a class. We want to create a database basically where the name of the employee will be there, the first name, last name, then the email of that employee, then pay structure of that employee, and we can create more, right? So let's say there are 500 employees, so we need to create for 500, we need to make the entries for 500 employees and so on. So whenever we wish to find out a single employee, we can find out the information. Okay, let's start. So how to create a class. So you create a class by giving this command, which is class employee colon. So this will actually create the class. Right now, I am keeping this. Once you put a colon here, it will automatically give a tab here. As I said in my previous lecture, the indentation is very important in Python. No curly brackets are used here, but it's only the indentation from where the Python, the compiler comes to know that what is the code, how how to identify various lines for a specific purpose. Correct. So if you want to keep this class empty for the time being, so if you can say pass. the compiler will automatically know that there is nothing in the class which is employee here, and it will start executing the rest of the program. But if you do not give pass here, it will show an error. Okay. Now this is an employee class. For the time I'm not putting anything into the class, right? First of all, I will write few lines of code which will tell you that without using the class, and then we will talk about how to make use of the class to, you know, to write the to save the lot of coding, right? So I am now, this is employee one, emp_1. This is known as instance, right? This is an instance of the class employee. So how to create an instance of the class employee? emp_1 equal to employee, and these brackets will come here. All right. This will actually create an instance of the class employee. Now, what is basically a class? A class is a blueprint for creating instances of the class. So class is a blueprint, and you can create instances from that. Each unique employee that will be created using this employee class will be an instance of that class. Correct? Now emp_1, emp_2, so two instances are created, and if I now print this emp1 and emp2, you will see that these are the two objects created, and you will see the location of these objects is also different. So two instances are created or objects are created, the location is also different, right? Okay, then I will use this instance of the class employee emp_1, and I will create these instance variables. For example, emp_1 dot first, that means the first name, equal to Sanjay, right? So this is the first in these are known as the instance variable. emp1 and emp2, these are instances. Employee is a class, and emp_1 dot first dot last dot email dot pay, this is for employee one, and these are known as the instance variables, right? I will also discuss about what are class variables, but that we will discuss afterward. And similarly for employee two, emp2 dot first dot last dot email dot pay. So these are the instance variables of this instance emp2. Now if you run this, and if you want to, let's say now print, if you want to know what is the email of emp1, employee one, and employee two, and also you can print any of the variables. For example, now let's say I want to print for these three things. If you run this code, you will see that the email address of Sanjay.Sharma, Rahul. I'm using the second employee, some arbitrary name. It is Rahul Sharma. Last name is Rahul Sharma, and employee email is rahul.sharma@thapar.in. So it will give me the display, right? Now, important thing up to this code to remember is that this is the class. emp1, emp2 are the instances of the class, and these are the instance variables, right? And we can print any of the instance variables. Now, for example, if you have 500 employees, you will have to create instance variables for 500 employees. If you want to do, if you want to follow this kind of approach for programming, right? Which is I mean, large number of lines for the coding, and we are not making any use of this class as such, and we are creating a very sequential kind of code. Okay. Now the thing is that it is a long process to set these instance variables separately for each employee, and no use of creating a class if we do it in this way. So let's see how can we, make use of the class in Python or in any other language for that matter, any other object oriented programming language, how to make use of the class. Now we will use a special init method. Init, you can treat it as initialization method, or if you know C or C, if you know C++, it is basically the constructor. It is basically what we call as the constructor in C or C++, right? Which will be created inside the class. So this init method, and let me also talk about what, because I will use here the words like attributes and methods. Attributes are basically data. Attribute, when I use the word attribute, it's basically the data. This is the data of the first employee, this is the data of the second employee, and the methods are basically the functions in the program. So alternatively, I will use methods, which are basically the representation of the functions only, and the attributes, which are basically data. Correct? Okay. So I will use the init method to make it when we create, so which will be created inside the class. So that way, if you see here, class employee, so employee class is created, and we will define a function. So def is the command to create a function or method. 2 times underscore init, again 2 times underscore. This is how this function init method is created. So when we create methods within the class, they actually receive the first argument. They receive instance as the first argument, right? So they receive the instance as the first argument. By convention, the first instance in the init method, right, we by convention we say it self, we name it by self. You can name it any way, no problem, but by convention we say it self. So this is an instance of this. This is an instance, and for the rest of the arguments you can, that's what I'm writing here. When we create methods within the class, they receive instance as the first argument. By convention, it is called self. After self, we can specify what other arguments we want to accept. For example, other arguments we want to accept are first name, for first name, last name, pay. You can create the email from first and the last only, right? And these are the instances. And this is how we will create the instance variables. Rather than here, if you see what we were doing here, we were creating the instance variables separately, and we were saying that employee 1.first is Sanjay and so on and so forth. But what we are doing here in this init method, we are saying self.first equal to first. We are giving it as, see, self.first equal to first. You can again give a different naming convention here, but conventionally, this is how it is done. Self.first equal to first, self.last equal to last. These are the instance variables, and this is how the naming is done. Self.pay is pay, and self.email, how this is created, first name plus dot, last name plus @thupper.edu. Right, 4 instance variables are created, and these are the instances. Employee 1 equal to, we are using the class here, employee, and we are passing we are passing these arguments to the function, to the method. Sanjay Sharma 50,000, let's say, is the pay. Employee 2, we are passing like this. And whenever now I want to print amp.email, right? So let me just actually just remove this and run this code. You will see that Sanjay.Sharma, the email is printed. And if I want to print something out of the, I will explain. See, this is how the information is printed. If I want to print outside the class, employee.first, employee.last, we can, this is the placeholder. Let me run this. Let's see what is the output. The output is Sanjay Sharma, right? This is how you can print the Sanjay Sharma. Print, this is first placeholder, second placeholder dot format, employee dot first, employee dot last, right? Will give you this. Now this this information I am printing outside the class, right? Print placeholder, this is first placeholder, second placeholder, and I'm using format function for printing two variable, but this is I'm trying to print outside the class, right? So how to do it within the class? I will create another function, because this is the full name I am trying to display here, Sanjay Sharma, which is the full name of the employee one. How can I make use of the method which is created within the class? I will create another method which is def full name, and again I will give the self as the argument, right? And I will return what? Return the same thing here. Placeholder, first placeholder, second placeholder dot format, self dot. And if you run this, right, and you print the for employee one dot full name, now you're calling the function also within the class, right? So it will be displaying you, it is giving the output for the two names, right? So this is the method created within the class, correct? I think time is 12:08. I will come back to the creation of the classes once again. I will discuss this topic once again, start this topic once again, and we will see more into how to create classes and how to make use of, make full use of creating classes and methods within the classes. If any questions are there, then please ask. Otherwise, I will end the lecture, right? Because you will have to use these classes to do some of the algorithms in detail, rather than using the already existing libraries. We will give you some programs where you will have to code by creating your own classes. Okay. Okay. So I will end this lecture. Thank you so much for joining.